Jesus fucking Christ, some of these are on episode 5? How? How does anyone keep up with this shit? This show is fine, but I lost interest in it pretty quickly. On the one hand, it's a character drama full of flawed people we're meant to watch grow, but on the other hand, none of them are really likable enough to give me a firm footing in the story. I can root for them intellectually because I understand the point, but emotionally I just don't really give a shit. It looks nice for the most part, but overextends itself by trying to keep every shot interesting, even when it probably shouldn't. Like, I've got nothing against rotoscoping when it's good, and sometimes it is here, but not all the time, and fuck those trees for real. It doesn't help my engagement that the presentation of certain story elements comes off a little bit extra. Granted, my complaint about episode 1 presenting the main girl as too naturally gifted was abated when we learned that she did indeed practice her whole life, but how long will I need to wait to find out if her mom actually abandoned her on the basis of her performance in one game where she was sick and that no one could convince her otherwise? I don't know, I don't really care enough to find out. I don't get the hype some people have for this show at all. Episode 2 presented us with the most basic characterization imaginable. Totally generic emotional hangups with so little specificity in their presentation as to be meaningless. As I feared, the badass fight animation of the first episode has been replaced with overlong, tensionless battles stretched to fit the length of the backing music. Guys, just watch Star Driver. I'm gonna ride this plane out of your life again. Episode 3 was surprisingly cutting and dramatic. I didn't expect this show to go for the jugular on the feels, or to progress the relationship as emotionally as it did, as fast as it did, or to end on a heart-wrenching cliffhanger. These kids are so incredibly good for each other, and they just keep getting better in such a heartwarming way. I love how Haruo is already the perfect boyfriend long before he's even started to accept that role, and how Akira already treats him like one, not even having to be honest about it because it wouldn't change anything. At least not until the relationship is threatened. I'm crazy excited to see where this is going to go and whether the momentum of this drama will be capitalized on. If you still aren't watching this show yet, you're missing out on the cutest romance of the year so far. Wow, that was fucking boring. Episode 2 of this is a dumpster fire. That fucking little girl was so annoying I was begging for her to get eaten by vampires, and when she didn't, I knew this was a drop. All of the dialogue was either boring exposition about shit I have no reason to care about yet, or vapid attempts at characterization using the convenience of a little girl who just happens to ask nothing but prescient, pressing questions which might reveal details of the character's pasts. I was right about to pass out when the fighting started, and it barely stirred me. What the hell was the point of bringing back the vampire chick from episode 1 if she was just gonna get killed off immediately anyways? Whatever, this shit blows. Next. The best I can say about this show is that it's inoffensive, but that's not enough to keep me engaged as more serious plot elements come in and the predictable progression starts feeling dragged out. There's nothing in this show I haven't seen before, and looking at a bright and breezy fanservice fantasy show is just making me want to go watch Konosuba or Last Period again instead. If you really need a weekly fix of utterly typical anime, I can't blame you for continuing this one through such a dismal season, but I'd rather take this time to go finish Little Witch Academia or something. It's fun to stay at the Maybe this works as a manga, but the anime suffers brutally from playing too close to it. Aside from artwork which suffers by comparison, the jokes all fall flat when I can call out what's going to happen during the overlong setup periods. At some point I started entertaining myself by trying to guess where the text bubbles would have been in the original panels. This, again, is nothing I haven't seen before, and the cast is bereft of anyone likable or whom I can connect with or root for. Like, am I supposed to want these two cousins to fuck? Why? Also, just a random aside, what the hell is going on in this hallway scene? I can't tell if this is a row of monitors or if it's supposed to be multiple women feeding animals in separate fish tanks which just straight up use the same animation. Going by the manga, it's the latter, and that makes this the funniest thing to happen in the whole goddamn episode. Damn, I ain't been going psycho, lil' mama bad like Michael, can't really trust nobody. I was still on board with this show up through episode 2 because I liked watching the main girl fuck with people. The breezier moments and outlandish revelations breaking up the boring, edgy psychological symbolism made that part easier to deal with, but as the plot started to escalate in episode 3 and the internal monologuing ramped up to occupy most of the screen time, I pretty much immediately lost interest. Not that I expected to last very long with this show, but it's a bit of a letdown since it had one of the few leading characters I was mildly interested to see what would happen to this season. Lightning round. Goku Dolls is still good, but nothing new enough happened in episode 4 that it wouldn't be covered by my thoughts in the previous ones. Space Bug was heavily recommended by someone on Twitter, but I couldn't make it past how half of the animation is literally copy-pasted from Toy Story, and the whole first half was an exposition dump. Not interested. Cells at Work I watched another episode of because it got voted keep for some reason. I feel exactly the same as I did before. And the anime of the week is... Is there no world for tomorrow if we wait for today? Capitalizing on the promise of its premiere, Planet With has some of the boldest themes, most outlandishly absurdist plotting, and downright funniest dialogue in anime this year. Get past the uneven visuals and into the characters, whose psychological hangups maybe give them power, or maybe are their undoing. Perhaps the way forward for human evolution is absolution from trauma, or maybe it's in conquering it. Most fascinating about this series is how everyone in the conflict is basically on the same side, but with different motivations. Everyone is just fighting for humanity's happiness in the future, but even within the factions of competing ideologies, everyone has their own agendas or intentionality beyond that of the group. Because the stakes are only high in anyone's minds, we are reassured that there's not much risk of anyone dying, and when it's implied that some do, it's a fake out, though who knows that this is just to lull you into a false sense of security before the next hammer drops, the so-called plot is completely unpredictable, while themes are dropped in your lap so matter-of-factly as to laugh in the face of other shows for even trying to string you along with mystery. Planet With is a show that knows nothing matters, but plays with the viewer by fucking with their expectations and undercutting the tone of each scene with playful abandon so that every scene is entertaining, but always with class and enough smart remarks to glue shut the winky eye of the author. If it can deliver on the promise of these early episodes, it will easily shine as by far the best action vehicle of the season. And there you have it. If all goes well, we'll just be talking about High Score Girl, Goku Dolls, and Planet With next time. If not, why you do this to me? Stick around for the gravy train of daily main channel videos still a-rollin', and catch up on other shit you missed using my big ass playlist or by turning into a patron. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.